There are 4 types of leverage that you need to implement in your business to make sure that you get the maximum ROI from your efforts. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about those 4 types of leverage. And let me just give you a quick quote. If you give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, I can move the earth. Archimedes said that, okay? But the modern day philosopher in business philosopher, Naval Ravikant, took it even further, right? Fortunes require leverage. Business leverage comes from capital, people, code, or media. You can multiply yourself. That's what leverage is, ultimately. It's multiplying yourself. And so let's talk about each one of these in particular and how you can implement it into your business today, okay? So first you have people, okay? This is the lowest form of leverage because, and when I say the lowest, it's still way better than you doing everything yourself, basically, right? So let's talk about what does that mean? What does people, leveraging people mean? Then let's talk about how some examples of how you can do it in your business from, let's say, the beginning to, let's say, 100 people, right? To a bigger business. Hiring people is what most people think about when they think about business. I don't even think people think about creating teams as much, but hiring people. And another thing about this is people look at this as like a luxury. Hiring people is not a luxury. Hiring people is business, right? Now, obviously, as we go on and talk about the other 3 forms of leverage, you're going to understand that it's not just about people, but people are a big part of it. Right? So at the beginning, it's hiring others to work on your vision. So I have a vision for this media company, for IAM Media, that I want it to be one of the biggest media companies in the world. And by biggest, I mean doing the biggest projects, right? And we've done a couple of full-scale projects, the ones that I really want to be doing, which is a 2-year process of a new business or a new startup and just taking their marketing and just making it what I believe A1, right? But let's talk about the beginning part of that. For IAM Media, the most important thing I had to realize is that I can't do it all by myself and that I shouldn't do it all by myself. It's my vision and I need people to carry out this vision. If I try to do it myself, it will not happen. It will not happen. And you might say, well, Andrew, you need money to do that. And that is the next form of leverage. But I will say, for me, I had to learn very quickly that it's not just about money. People want to have a vision as well. One of the greatest texts of all time, the Bible says that without vision, the people will perish. I believe that's how business is. If you do not paint the vision, which is a whole nother skill set, and I think that that's another piece that we're not understanding as business owners, is that you need to practice painting the vision for others. In your sales pitch, in your marketing, in your onboarding process of your own team. If you come on my team and I say, I'll pay you $45,000 a year to do this job, there's nothing about that that's setting it apart from why don't they just go over there for $50,000? Why don't they just go over there for $60,000? At that point, they'll just go to the highest bidder. But if they see a vision, you see this guy right behind me, Steve Jobs, painted the vision so well that there were so many people at his company, on his team that could have been poached by, Intel or Microsoft or any of those other competing companies, and they didn't go. Why? Because they had a vision and they had a mission that they were all fighting for. They were all working very, very hard to make this thing work out. So, for example, a founder hires a VA to manage their inbox, 10 hours per week, reclaimed for strategy or revenue generating work. I'm at a place in my business right now at IAM Media where I'm not doing the editing anymore, okay? At first, I started out as a freelancer doing editing for, some big time podcasts. And I ended up sort of stumbling into delegating when I realized that, pumping out 30 pieces of content for this client is not the right move for me. When I had a bigger vision, I hired on a couple of editors. I hired on a head of content. And we basically, from that point forward, my only job was to get more clients. Right? Get more clients. And what was I doing with those clients? I was painting the vision for them. I was painting the vision of what they could have in their business if they hired us, right? So you're hiring people on to do the menial tasks in order to go to the next level. Dan Martell talks about this in his book, Buy Back Your Time. I don't know why I drifted off there, but Buy Back Your Time. He talks about this, where you need to write down all of your tasks during the day in order to make your business run. What do you need to do on a daily basis to make your life the perfect life that you want? What do you need to do on a daily basis? And then put a dollar amount to each one of those tasks in a, let's say, per hour or per month scenario. one thing you'll know really quickly is the fact that most tasks don't cost that much to accomplish, okay? But you're going to put a price next to that. And then you're going to say to yourself, well, how much am I worth as the CEO, as the founder, as the owner of this company, as the manager, whatever it is, what am I worth? And anything under that, you need to delegate, okay? And I've been in stressful situations where the company just didn't have any money, right? At that point, the only thing you need to be doing, the only thing I did at that time was I went and I found more clients, because most of the time there's not enough clients, right? A digital marketing agency like us and podcast production, then you need to be making sure that obviously clients come in, they get a service, they get the deliverables, but making sure that you're, delegating the correct amount of money, right? For the process, for the progress, and then doing it right. So one of the issues is that you're not getting enough clients. So if you're getting more clients in and you have that income, then you need to be delegating, because you're building a business. You're not trying to get rich right off of the first 10 clients you get. The most important thing you want to do is either solve a big problem or help a lot of people. The best businesses solve big problems for a lot of people. Like I said, for me, a marketing agency, we build a team of editors to turn one podcast into 30 pieces of content per week. That's what we do. How can we turn this one full-length podcast into 30 pieces of content? Now, we just launched this podcast, this IAM Media podcast. We just launched this one. And so we're going to be showing you guys how we're doing it and then how we can do it for you as well. So basically how to use it in order to use people as leverage, or leverage people to build your vision. You start small. You delegate your bottlenecks, the things that are slowing you down, or the things that are just taking your attention and time when you should be getting more clients and doing founder and CEO type things, not on a beach, not that type, not the social media CEOs, but the real CEOs and the real founders doing that type of work, bringing more money into the company, painting the vision, making sure people are interacting in a constructive manner, right? So delegating your bottlenecks, and then using contractors or freelancers before full-time hires. If you can't afford a full-time hire, then look for freelancers, look for contractors, and that's what we had to do at the very beginning, right? Let's move on to the next lever. Next lever is capital, borrowing money or buyback resources, right? We look at money too much as like the top resource, but your time is the most important. Your time is the most important thing. And then the energy is the second most important thing. Money's at the end, right? It's time, energy, money. If you're like, I can just do it myself, then you're putting money at the top, time at the middle, and then energy at the bottom. It only takes me an hour. It only takes me 2 hours. I'll just chop up my own podcast and put it out there. Okay. And the interesting thing is you are leveraging your time. Content is the number 3 pillar. We're going to talk about this in a second. Content is the number 3 lever. However, you need to understand that the money you're bringing in needs to be put out so that we can continue building this thing. Now, I will say, once you get to a certain point in business, you should be taking some money out of the business, because Alex Emoji talks about this. There's no rush. There's no rush. There's no rush to get to where you're going. Okay? So as your business is growing to a certain point, once everything's in place and you're starting to get good cash flow with, and in the book E-Myth, also in the description below, I have my 10 best marketing books. They're business books, but the 10 best marketing books that have helped me. Make sure you click on that, download that, read those books. They'll teach you more than any course out there on marketing. And so one thing we need to understand is that at the beginning of the business, we have to grow the business. We have to stimulate the business. We have to get our name out there. Alex Mosley, again, talks about this. He talks about, if you're under $3 million a year, which we are currently, if you're under $3 million a year, you need to be making sure that you're putting the first 4 hours of every day into reminding people who you are, right? So that's content, that's cold outreach, that's warm outreach, and that's paid ads. So which one of those are you doing for 4 hours every single day? This podcast is content. That's the third lever. Putting out this podcast is a part of that paid advertising scenario situation, right? So what does it mean using money, capital, as a lever? Number 2 lever, using money to buy your time, inventory, or growth. So it's a way of, again, these are all just leverage points, right? And the best businesses use all 4 of these. Leverage points, for me, it's just how well can you do it. There are some businesses that only run on capital. Hedge funds, private equity, venture capital. These these companies only run on capital, right? Not only on capital, but predominantly on capital, okay? They use money to buy companies, to buy percent ownership. They're using capital to make more money, right? Or to run their business. For example, if you invest $1,000 into Meta ads and you get 3,500 back, that is a form of leverage. That is a form of leverage, right? You didn't have to use your time or energy. You just put money into the ads. Obviously, you don't just throw money at ads, please. You don't just throw money at ads. Don't do that. That's a huge thing that I'm going to be saying a lot on this podcast. Don't just throw money at ads and expect it to be this genie in a bottle situation, right? There's a lot that you have to do, and we'll talk about that in future podcasts. Today, we're talking about leverage. If you put in $1,000 in Meta ads and you generate $3,500 in new business, that is a form of leverage. And one thing I've really been thinking about is what are the opportunities now in today's society, in today's culture, that you can put $1,000 in and get $3,500 out. One of those is, well, that by definition is leverage, right? That by definition is leverage. Going back to the human capital, if I spend an hour on this video, this is leverage as well. The content's leverage. But if I have to make a hat, okay, and I spend an hour making a hat, then I will get an hour of output for that hat. But if I hire 5 people to make hats, then I could spend 0 hours and get 5 hours worth of hats. I could spend 1 hour and get 6 hours worth of hats. That's what leverage is. If I pay 20 people to make a hat and I spend 0 hours on the hat, I will get 20 hats or whatever, 20 hats. If I pay them to make 20 hats and they give me 20 hats, I will now have 20 hats for 0 time or energy of the hat, okay? That's the essence of leverage. If I pull with this amount of force, how much can I move over there? Okay. So how do you use capital? Only use capital when you have a working offer. This is another thing that I had to realize very quickly. And by very quickly, I mean within the first year and a half, 2 years. It seems slow, but in the world of business, in the world of life, it's not slow. It's very fast. Within a year, I realized that it was my offer that didn't work. My offer. It wasn't the business. The business was fine. The offer needed to be changed. And so don't invest capital into something that doesn't work, into an offer that doesn't work. If you go and try to pitch, to Shark Tank, we see Shark Tank, but if you go and pitch to private equity or investors, it's the offer that has to be sound. And that's why investors will ask you, well, what do you have in sales? What is the market saying is what they're saying. The offer needs to be tested, right? So that's all it was. But if I had gone in with the idea of testing the offer, it would have been way easier, way simpler for me to get my answer. Even then, you can use capital to test the offer, whether that's Meta ads or if that's, back in the day, or focus groups. But testing the offer, going into your content, if you want to do this for free, you got to give up time and energy for it. But if you want to do this for free, post 100 pieces of content just talking about your offer and see what people say. And what you can do is once you put out 100 pieces of content about a certain offer, then you can retarget the people that gave you, comments, likes, shares, follows, whatever from that content. You can retarget them and see if you can get more feedback on the offer. Okay? We can talk about that another time, but that is how you use money as leverage. So only use capital when you have a working offer. Money accelerates what's already working. It doesn't fix what is broken. Let me say that one more time so you guys can understand that. Only use capital when your offer is working. Money accelerates what's already working. It doesn't fix what's broken. Okay? Moving on. Number 3, content. Borrowing attention. Okay? You're borrowing attention. You do not own YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You don't own these. Okay? You don't even really own your website, but you don't own these platforms. So you need to ask yourself, what am I doing? You're borrowing real estate. You're borrowing attention, right? And when you're doing that, when you're borrowing someone's attention, you want to make sure that you're capitalizing it on every single second of that attention because you're paying for it, right? You're paying for it with time and energy. Now, the beauty of content though, and this is why I push YouTube so hard, is because, all platforms now are search engines. Okay, so you should be posting content that's evergreen and making sure that your content is directed right at your target client or your target audience. Okay, because it's searchable now. right? You know, maybe even 6 months to a year ago, YouTube and Google for me were the most important things. And now we're looking at Gemini with Google, or we're looking at OpenAI or ChatGPT with OpenAI. We're looking at these AI generative models, right? And I believe that search is going to be similar. It's going to be almost the same. We need to be integrated into those things. That's a whole different discussion and something I'm really studying. But understand that when you post a YouTube video, you do not have to repost that YouTube video necessarily. I personally like the idea of, say a video did well, redoing that video, making sure that I'm really, really knocking it out of the park, right? With any of the platforms, I highly recommend that you start with evergreen content. If you're a plumber, it's like, what are the most common reasons that a plumber is called, right? Top 5 reasons plumbers are called. And then just putting out a ton of content about that on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, Facebook, and being the main plumber, being the plumber guy, Mr. Plumber. That's a huge opportunity, right? Doing that within your niche, within your industry is very, very important. What I will say is YouTube for me is one of the most important ones to do that, because you have longer. People are coming on there actually intending to stay on there for 30 to 45 minutes, right? Probably minimum 30 to 45 minutes. People are coming on there searching for something, and you want to make sure that you show up. Search engine optimization, but basically you want to be the main person for that when people look up certain phrases, right? So a YouTube video that brings in leads for years. I mean, I've seen it many times. If you look at Russell Brunson, he posted 2 YouTube videos and it just brought in a ton of people into ClickFunnels. It's your VSL. It's your video sales letter. So make sure you're putting out YouTube videos. And if not, click the link below to schedule a call with us and see if we can work with you. If you're local, if you're in St. John's in Jacksonville, we would love to help you post more YouTube content, get people coming in for years down the road, because it's evergreen. It's going to be there for a long time. Next is a viral tweet thread that lands you on a podcast. X.com is a lot more. X and LinkedIn are a lot more businessy. Obviously, X is not just business, but LinkedIn obviously is. But X is way more for, if you're more of a writer, go for X, go for LinkedIn, go for a newsletter, stay in your lane at the beginning, do what you do best, okay? And what we like to do is we like to work with people who already have a lot of content, and we just repurpose and position your content. So if you have a lot of written content and you do really well written, then what we do is we come in and we help you with your YouTube videos using your words, using the way that you speak. But it reaches a broader audience if you have already sort of saturated your own market, right? Start publishing consistently, answer questions your ideal client is asking, and treat your content like assets, not chores. Every time I post, like if I ask you, hey, is your house an asset? Most of you guys are going to say yes. But why is your YouTube video not an asset? And I ask small businesses this. We work with a couple wellness brands here, a couple IV therapy companies. And one of the main things that I tell them is to look at what they're doing. Most people say look at it as an investment. Yeah, but at the same time, look at these as assets. These are assets for your business. Well, of course, we need a website. Yeah, you need a website, but more people are going to look at your YouTube, and more people are going to look at your Instagram and TikTok, and you should be putting out your best. You should be putting your best foot forward, not dancing and doing trends necessarily. You should be putting out content. You should be putting out content that gives you credibility, right? We talk about the CARE method: credibility, approachability, results, and education, right? So you should be focusing on those. So like I said, how do we start doing this? You got to start publishing consistently. Start posting YouTube videos, start posting content, and real content, not just putting out flyers, guys. You guys put out these flyers on your on your Instagram, and we don't do flyers anymore. No one wants to see your flyers. If you're going to have a strategic carousel post, that's one thing, but not just a flyer with a bunch of words on it. No one is watching. No one's looking at YouTube for a bunch of flyers. So be strategic about it. Post content strategically and learn from it. Someone put this the other day on LinkedIn, and I loved it. Would you have some intern seeing your patients and being the first one that they saw? No. So why are you, a doctor, a nurse practitioner, someone who's highly educated in your field? Why would you be doing the marketing and the content? It doesn't make sense. You need to hire people to bring people into your business. It's mind blowing to me when people, like if I walked in to your practice and I tried to show you how to realign a spine, or I tried to show you how to inject things into my lip, you'd be like, Andrew, what are you doing? Stay in your lane. Like this is actually dangerous. Same with you. You genuinely are going to put content out there that is going to make you guys not look like the way you want to look. That's simple. You need to hire people to help you with your marketing, even if you're like, you know what, Andrew, um, I can't afford right now for someone to come in and do content. For me, you can't afford not to. But what I will say is at least have a strategy. At least have a strategy and a way of moving forward that you know works, because at the end of the day, you need to make sure that at least you're in the right direction. You don't want to go in the number one thing you don't want to do is go in the wrong direction. It's okay to go slow. It's okay to stop sometimes, but as long as you're going in the right direction, eventually you will get there, right? And you'll be better for it. Let's go to the last one. Code, okay? Software that runs without your involvement. Software that runs without your involvement. One of the big things that I'm highlighting for the clients that we work with and the ones that, want a new website or whatever, or they want a revamp of their website. One of the main things that we're doing right now is chatbots. We use chatbots. And why? Because you have a customer service agent available 24/7. You're using code in your business. And we live in a world now where it's possible to have all four of these levers very, very seamlessly. Like, you don't need to hire a developer anymore to do your website. You just need someone who knows what they're looking for. You only need the understanding of what a great website is to have a great website. But the issue, again, is that we have founders and owners, brilliant doctors and brilliant nurse practitioners and brilliant trainers, exercise scientists, really, that are trying to put together a website or trying to do their own content. Why? You're wasting time, energy, and ultimately you're wasting money. One key example is building a digital product, course, or simple tool that sells itself. Okay, this is another piece. Everyone should have a free product. You should have a free product, whether it's an AI body scanner or whatever, that high level, or it's a simple PDF that talks about, how to stay hydrated in the summer months here in St. John's and Jacksonville. This is a huge gem that I learned recently, is make it so only your ideal client wants that thing, right? And it could be a general thing. So it's like, we're targeting people who have money, affluent 30 to 50-year-olds in St. John's and Jacksonville. What I will say is take away the affluent part, okay? Take away the affluent part and just give, say, the perfect, you could test the affluent part as well. You could be very super specific and just say what I just said. Top 5 tips for staying hydrated for 30 to 50-year-olds in St. John's and Jacksonville, for founders and owners and investors, right? Or you could just say, if you're over 30 years old, you need to have these 5 tips to stay hydrated in Jacksonville or in St. John's, Florida this summer, right? Because now you know that the people who ask you for that or the people who want that are going to be at least, three-fourths of the way of being your ideal client, right? So that's the software piece. How do you use it? Make sure you use tools like Zapier, Notion, Webflow to build systems. If you're not a coder, partner with one or hire a builder, okay? You don't need a coder necessarily. You just need someone who understands software, right? You don't need a coder anymore. You just need to have someone who understands software and organization and automations, right? So they don't need to be able to code anymore. They don't need to be a developer. Yeah, guys. So these are the 4 levers that you need to be having in your business to make sure that your work is being magnified or your work is being multiplied. You want to multiply yourself. At the end of the day, you want to multiply yourself to the point where you're not needed anymore. Okay? You want to fire yourself from the business. Everyone talks about this. Cody Sanchez, Naval Ravikant, Alex Emoji, whoever you follow talks about this. So at the end of the day, guys, if you want my top 10 marketing books, click the link below. Get those books, and I will see you guys on the next episode of the IAM Media podcast.